Oh, is it 8 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay. We'll call this meeting to order. It's Tuesday, December 14th, 2021, Boards of Directors Study Session. Would you take roll call, Madam Clerk?
Yes. Director Brett Eccles,
Here.
Director Arthur Perry.
Here.
Secretary Arlene Schaefer, Vice President Mike Schaefer,
Here.
President Robert Uten.
Here.
Thank you.
Have there been any public comments
No, Mr. President.
submitted in writing? Morning, Jim.
President Uten, members of the board, sorry to be slightly late and not just slip in.
Jim?
Non-agenda comment I wanted to make was to,
Hold on one second. Is his mic on? I can't.
Yeah, he's,
Oh, okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
the non-agenda item I wanted to ask about was the status of redistricting in this district. Last night, we had a meeting in Newport Beach of the redistricting committee. I believe a similar effort is going on in Costa Mesa. And it's generally assumed that you have to redraw the division boundaries if the disparity in population between the most populated and least populated is more than 10%. And for special districts, if that's necessary, I believe the deadline is April 17th. So I'm wondering if we've determined if there is a need to do that or not.
oh, I will tell you that that's in progress, so we can report on it. Scott, do you want to answer that
I'll
question?
defer to District Councilor Alan Burns, who's the lead staff person on this project. So Alan, can you respond to Mr. Burns' question?
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
You want to know what the status is on redistricting the voting divisions? That we have, deadlines on
Oh.
April 5th. What's the status on that?
Who is that? I'm sorry,
Mr.
who is
Mosher.
asking the question?
Mr. Mosher, Mr. Jim
We
Mosher.
have, Deborah Zeep, our CD, our Cal State Fullerton demographer is working on a report to determine if the population changed enough to where any district adjustments will be necessary. That's going to be the first step.
Okay, we're going to the next item. Any other public comments? Then if not, we'll go on to items for study, and that's first one is receive and file the 2021 CR&R performance review. We're one of the staff.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Nabila Guzman will give you a report. Nabila, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Good morning, Board of Directors. Give me a moment. Sorry. Per section 4.6 of the agreement, the district shall complete a yearly performance review of CR&R. The annual performance review was for fiscal year 2020, ending on June 30th, 2021. I reviewed CR&R in 7 areas, and I will briefly review each one. Overall, CR&R received a satisfactory for fiscal year 2020-2021. So CR&R furnished all labor to collect, transport, and recycle of the solid waste collected. Due to COVID-19, contents in the mixed waste card continue to be transported directly to the landfill for the first 4 months of the fiscal year in review. Organic material and the organics recycling card continue to be sorted and recycled at the AT facility. The district's goal is to maintain a net to hauler rate that does not exceed 10% of the county average, and the standard per net to hauler payment during the review period was $19.03, which is $2.10 below the county average of $21.13. I did know that the countywide review process is becoming outdated, as the data is not an apples to apples comparison of what is paid for, since CMSD pays a 10 fee. For records, reports, and reviews, CR&R promptly sent district staff month-end reports for processing. In operations, the year before this, which was 2019-2020, CMSD performed an extensive review that was presented to the Board of Directors in March of this year. So for this current year, the internal review did not include that extensive vehicle and route review. but we are still working with CRNR on issues found in the previous year. So we did verify that trucks promised to CMSD will be delivered in February 2022, and that overpacked routes had reduced their loads over 13 tons. There were 425 missed curbside pickup complaints received by CMSD during the year in review, and this did include the high spikes in missed pickups that was brought to the board's attention for May and June of 2021. This concludes my report. I am happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Do any of the board members have questions on the performance review? If not, thank you very much, Nabilia. Item number 2, consider directing the general manager to renegotiate the CRNR environmental services contract for SB 1383 compliance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, Nabila will be giving us a report.
President Uten and members of the board, the district staff with solid waste consultant Michael Ballier have been having informal meetings with CRNR regarding SB 1383 compliance. We've been reviewing the current gaps in service that are not SB 1383 compliant. And in those talks, there have been, it's brought up the topic of a possible transition into a 3-cart system has been brought up. Attached to the staff report is CRNR's draft proposal for SB 1383 compliance and a 3-cart curbside service. Establishing a source separating curbside recycling program would ideally increase the district's diversion rate because fewer recyclables would end up at the landfill due to contamination, and it would allow the district to be in full compliance with state mandates. The SB 1383 regulation requires that anyone using a 2-cart system take their material to a high diversion facility for processing. Over the last few years, all CRNR cities have converted to a 3-cart program except for CMSD, who still uses a dirty MRF. CRNR has explained that it would be too costly to upgrade their existing facilities to achieve compliance with the new SB 1383 regulations. Therefore, it's highly unlikely that CRNR's MRF would be a high diversion facility. If CMSD decides to keep a 2-cart system, CRNR would pass the cost to update their facility to CMSD ratepayers. Staff believes that a source-separated 3-cart system would result in cleaner recyclables, increase diversion, and eliminate the cost of the mixed waste processing and allowing for simpler educational outreach since the 3-cart system is a standard in the United States. Having residents source separate allows them to become familiar with the waste they produce and will hopefully encourage them to also dispose of their food waste in the organic cart since they are already separating all of their waste. The initial CRNR proposal attached is a good starting point, but CMSD would like to further explore the option of offering 90-gallon carts to residents. So currently, when residents set up service, they are allowed 35-gallon carts or 65s. Anyone with a 90-gallon cart is grandfathered in. As of November 30th, 2021, there are 13,363 90-gallon carts issued to our residents. Thinking ahead, CMSD would like to explore the possibility of CRNR doing the billing for trash service, as they already do for other city clients. CMSD has always placed trash and wastewater rates on property taxes, which really limits CMSD being able to incorporate a tier rate system, which means residents would pay based on the size of the carts that they have at home. Allowing CRNR to bill would make a pay-as-you-throw rate system an option for CMSD in the future. Lastly, when CMSD rolled out the organics program in 2015, the district was allowing for exemptions. But SB 1383 does not allow for exemptions. So all of these residents that were once exempt we have to be introduced to the organics program over the next 2 years. I looked at our exemption spreadsheet, and there are 337 single-family homes that were exempt. 32 multifamily homes with 122 units. And then the mix of multi and single family homes that results in about 1,471 units that live in areas that are very dense and there's no curbside space for carts. And this does not account for all the new developments since 2015 that were automatically exempt. The proposal, the attached proposal does include cost. In their cost, it is included to bring all of these homes to participate in the organics program. Staff believes that the community support, along with SB 1383 regulations, allows for the board of directors and CMSD staff to negotiate a contract that will meet the needs of the community and keep CMSD in compliance with the state of California. A 3-cart system would allow for material collected from CMSD area to be taken to a clean MRF, which means less contamination, higher diversion, less labor intensive. So again, attached is CRNR's proposal, and they had initially provided a fee of $24.08 per month for SB 1383 compliance and a 3-cart system. So staff is requesting that the board of directors direct the general manager to begin negotiations with CRNR on these topics. I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Directors, have any questions?
Yeah, I do. I've got a couple. I just, Nabila, thank you for the information. I did have a question. If I'm understanding correctly, the proposal would take the rate basically about 12% higher than what our rate would be for 21, 22. Am I reading that correctly?
We would need to go back to CRNR and get a breakdown of their initial proposed rate of $24.08. But staff does believe CMSD currently pays a per ton fee. So we pay a fee for mixed waste, a fee for organics, and an occupancy fee. So we were understanding that maybe the $24.08 took us from a per ton fee to a flat rate.
Okay.
So again, we would need to go back to CRNR and get a breakdown of that fee.
Okay. And then also to transform their facility, it's talked about those costs would be passed on to our ratepayers. How does that work?
I believe, Scott, is CRNR or Mike Valier there that can help me answer this question?
Good morning. Yes, that would be the case. So what we would do is we've somewhat given an estimate. We haven't priced it out. As Nabila mentioned, the staff report, Newport actually is in the process. I think January we're set for target for converting to a 3-cart system. CMSD would be next. To meet the 75% high diversity, there's several upgrades we'd have to do at our MRF, known as CRT in Stanton. Minimum, we're thinking over $100,000 to be able to take a 2-cart system. And we just have to have, for better words, new grabbers, new magnetic systems that can separate the material to qualify as a high diversion. It could be even further because going through permits, and then Cal Recycle has to come out and say that they deem our facility to be high diversion. So they would even have to approve it to say that we meet those qualifications. The other option would be is if there is another high diversion facility that's operated by another company, that's also an option, but then they would charge a cost per ton to take the material there.
Got it. And with that cost, is there any way to show us what that cost is versus the proposed 24 and change for the 3-cart?
We could start looking into it. I think, like I said, at this point, it would be estimates that we would get for a quote.
Sure.
I don't know that they're going to go through the full engineering process, but
Just
we
a
could probably get some
basic
assumptions.
idea.
We can do
Yeah.
that and come back to staff.
That'd be great. Thank you.
What will happen to the existing MRF when all the customers are move to the three-cart system?
So our existing MRF is really set up more not for dirty MRF. It is set up for clean materials through the three-cart system. So the trash would be transferred to the facility. It either would go to Newport or to Stanton and then taken to the landfill, but the recyclables would go all through the line. The difference is we're not pulling the trash out of the recyclables. So we are set up to get a high diversion on clean, separated materials.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is that where it's going now to the other cities that have clean MRF? It's going to the same?
It's going to Stand, yes.
You've already set it
CRT.
up for that, right?
Yes,
So why would it be $100,000 more for to reconvert it?
because we're the dirty MRF process to go to the high diversion. Right now, our systems aren't really set up to get that high diversion when you're mixing trash with recycling.
Aren't we using the same MRF for those other cities?
You are, but it's going through a different process that we have to put it through to try to pull the recyclables out. Yeah, everything is clean. It goes into a different section and they have to run it through a couple times
Question is, why are you going to have to pay another $100,000 if you already have the system? in
because
place?
our facility based on Cal Recycle is not considered a high diversion facility to get a 75% diversion rate.
I know, but that's my question. But the other cities are using the same MRF.
The other cities, they have clean separated material. So we're better to get a higher commodity return because the recyclables are clean. A lot of the recyclables that we had from either CMSD or from Newport Beach are contaminated. And so we're not getting the same value. I know, I totally get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying, but the way Cal Recycle deems it, and I don't know, Mike, if I'm not explaining it clearly, but the way they deem our facility with the new legislation, it has to be a minimum of high diversity of 75%. Most of our diversion that we get today is 50, 55, or 60.
But so then you're saying.
I
that we
think
don't
what
go
you
to a
need to
three-cart
explain is a
system?
3-cart versus 2-cart.
That's Alan. Oh, so you're saying that if we went to a 3-cart. we
Our
would-
3-cart
If you went to
versus-
3-cart, we wouldn't have to make any upgrades to our facility. But if you stayed with the 2-cart system, that is a requirement from Cal Recycle that anyone stays with a 2-cart has to take their materials to a high, what they approve as a high diversion facility of 75%.
Thank you.
You probably should stay there. The potential proposal is have CRNR bill for trash service. And the caveat to that in the staff report was we could do a pay-as-you-go system.
With different size, we haven't went through those details yet, but yes. So if there's some residents that say they want a 35-gallon, the original cost was for everyone to have the 90-gallon, similar to what we're doing in Newport Beach. But there could be some potentials for residents to pay lower than that if they go with, let's say, 3 35 gallons.
Do you do that service now for some of the cities?
It's
that you
common. Mhm. So if someone has a 90 or 64 or 35, it is
Yeah.
common.
Well, I think, my real question probably is, and I think we've asked CRNR for the number of carts that are available. And in the past, I don't think CRNR had that information for Costa Mesa Sanitary District. I can see that as a huge conversion.
Well, it is, and it's a huge education process. So typically what happens when you convert to a pay-as-you-throw system, we do notifications and mailing. So everyone would get whatever the standard is, but if they decided they wanted to get a smaller cart, they could call in, we would exchange it out, and then they would get the different rate when they exchanged it. So to your point, yes, it would be very difficult to start that way. Everyone would get the basic service, but we'd have to do a lot of outreach to the residents that say, hey, there are smaller containers available. And with that does come an adjusted rate based on the size containers you pick. But we'd have to do a blanket distribution to start.
Yeah. I think residences turn over about every 3 years. I could see that as a huge problem for billing. And, the county now bills for us and they're very good at collecting. I wouldn't think a private vendor.
No, we will have bad debt issues for sure. Yeah. When it's billed on the property taxes or water, you don't pay your total bill, your services get cut off.
And the staff report notes that there's no residential exceptions. So so is everybody going to get a green cart whether they want it or not? or
Yes,
Need
and-
it or not?
The difference was with previous legislation, it didn't require, they had space constraints. But with 1383, the other part wasn't necessarily, it was two things, space constraints or they didn't have green waste. In other words, my landscaper takes my green waste with them. They don't leave it. But now because food waste is now brought into the mix, that's what requires
No.
everyone to have an organics cart. It's really more for the food.
And I guess my question for staff is, if approved, you'll begin to negotiate with CR&R. And the rate proposed by CR&R, does it include the pay-as-you-go system presently?
That rate in that proposal does not include that pay-as-you-go. So again, that's part of the negotiations we would
I'm-
discuss.
So, and it does not include the billing for trash service?
No,
No.
no. that's not.
Okay. What is your wild ass guess as to how long it would take for you negotiations with CR&R?
Months, and I would want to bring it back to the solid waste ad hoc committee to get their input. So it's going to be more than one meeting.
Yeah, their proposed rate is near the rate for 2023, 24, the last year of our proposed rate increases. So,
I have another question.
Well, I don't think Brett ever finished.
I had a couple more and then I'll pass the torch down the line. It's all good. So I just want to make sure I'm completely clear. Three cart, we're talking about potentially a 90 regular waste and then a blue and a green at 235. Is that correct?
Whatever we deem.
Basically, what the pay-as-you-go, you get what I've been history of when I worked at other organizations, how it works is you a 90 gallon, you get a choice of 90 gallon, 65 gallon, or 35 gallon, and each of those gallons have a different.
Okay.
So it's like a true utility. The more
Mm.
trash you throw away, the more you're going to pay. The less trash you throw away, the less you're going to pay. It's like a true utility, which my belief should be.
So, but under that scenario, though, we could still keep the billing or the property tax bill. We don't have to turn it over, right?
Don't have to, but if we go to the pay-as-you-throw program, it makes it a little more challenging for us. That's a little harder for us to do. So that's why if you want to go that route, we at least have that discussion with CNR that they would start doing the buildings.
Okay. And then I just had one more question. I think, Alan, are you on?
Yes, sir. Echoes.
So we have an existing contract with CR&R and the terms of which essentially are changing. And in this negotiation, we're talking about a rate change and maybe a term like, duration change. Does this require a new contract? Is this an addendum? What are we talking about legally here?
Well, it may be a new contract, it may be an addendum. The form it takes is not important. It's a new contract. It's just a matter of convenience and how much paper you create by amending it. So it is a new contract.
Okay, so in essence, we're talking about, we could put this out to bid to numerous vendors. Is that correct?
Well, I guess you'd ask the question, if nobody touched the contract, could they perform? And the answer, I think, is no, because 1383 has changed the rules. So we have to amend our contract, and we have to open it up to changes, including all of the things we've talked about, and maybe more. 3-cart versus 2-cart's a major issue right there. So yes, it is an open contract, and of course, you can change terms. It's subject to negotiation. Otherwise, the parties stand on their rights and say, no, we don't want to change the contract. We'll proceed as it is. And then you say, yeah, but then we're in violation of the law, and that can't happen. So yeah, we're in negotiation. Contract is
Okay.
open.
So a contract would be open and it could be put out to open bid on the market if, okay. All right, thank you, Alan. I'm good.
Arlene?
Okay. This question is for you to listen to, CR&R, but this is actually to Scott. as I recall, we've talked about having a meeting with the gardeners, inviting all the gardeners to come so that they could have a better understanding of what's going on with this cart and where they're throwing their branches or grass or whatever. Am I right?
I believe it wasn't specific to gardeners. I think you required us looking at having town hall meetings and getting the message out to the public on how to use the organic recycling program. That was the direction the board told us to look into, and we're still looking into that.
Because I think that would actually help educate not only the gardeners, but the people involved in it. Okay, thank you. And I'd love CRNR to be noticed so they could come and hear it too.
That's some of the suggestions with the legislation and regulation. We post some town hall meetings, just better opportunities. So if folks aren't on social media, they don't read e-newsletters, another option for them to come out into this type of a setting.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me go back to the billing part of this because I'm a little confused. Right now, we bill our residents one rate for liquid and solid. They get one bill. On their tax route, they have a bill from CMSD, which includes both liquid.
Technically, it's not a bill. It goes in the property tax roll. There's a separate rate for the solid waste services and a separate rate for the wastewater collection.
Does it show up as two different rates? See how much I pay attention to my property tax, right? We're talking about taking the solid waste part of that out and giving it to CRNR.
Have that discussion, yes.
I collect bills on a daily basis. I guess what I'm getting at is it's so easy to pay our charges on our property tax. It's out of sight, out of mind. I mean, essentially people pay because they have to pay. If we go to a billing again, I guess I'm going to defer to CRNR in just a second, but I know what it's like to have to go collect a bill. I know what it's like for people, our residents are getting a property tax bill, then they're getting a trash bill, which a lot of cities do. I mean, I have family members that in other parts of the county that do that. I'm just a little reluctant to go to that because it's harder to collect. I don't want Mike Carey knocking on my door saying you didn't pay your trash bill.
No, we sent Guido for that.
Yeah, there you go. So I think we need to give that some, I don't know how you're gonna carve that out, but that's a big deal.
There's options. CRNR does hire collection agencies to try to collect the revenues. Other options, I know at my previous employment in Claremont, when trash ratepayers or residents didn't pay their trash bills, they put it on their tax roll. That's another option. So if they don't pay their bill, we'll put it on their taxpayer property tax.
Just another complicating factor.
Well, but I think if you want to go down to that pay as you go, then it's something we need to consider.
Yeah,
Because we can't do it on the property tax.
Yeah, I get it. I understand. that.
I will add on that, Director. So yes, we do it both ways, but there are caveats. So today, stop service for non-payment. So for the cities that we bill, if they don't pay, there's a process. We stop service unless a city allows us at the end of the year to put unpaid trash charges onto property taxes. So that's another option. But if we don't have an option, to your point, to somehow collect, we do use the third party, but it's just like you said, sometimes people, I get it. You have to pay your electric bill or your water bill. You probably leave the trash bill to the side if you're struggling to pay utilities. And so we also use as a safety measure, we stop service. We have a third party, but at the end of the year, we also work with cities to put unpaid charges on property tax. And that's all the options we can discuss with Scott.
It just what I'm thinking about is right now it's easy. You just pay your property tax and you don't have to worry about it. Now we're going to give people another cart to use, which is going to be a lot of work. We went through a lot of work going to the lime green, the organics carts. So now we're giving them 3 carts. Oh, and by the way, we're changing the way we bill you for that as well. It's not going to be received very well with the general public. I mean, as we go into these negotiations and whatever we're going to do, I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that this is a major shift to the public. It's a major shift. My simple brain says, oh my God, now my wife's got to pay a trash bill, and I hope she's got enough money in her account. And I'm not trying to be flippant about it. I think there's a lot of revolving things. One more thing.
Well, I was wondering, is the billing monthly?
Quarterly,
Quarterly? Okay.
so 4 bills a year.
Does Mesa Water do twice a month? Bi-monthly? Okay. And with the advent, I mean, with snail mail going away, I mean, there's another option I don't want to do. Let's go back to the carts for just a second. I love the analogy in here about 3 carts being the gold standard. You don't normally think of a gold standard with refuse, but I
Well,
like
we
that
do,
analogy.
but maybe not everybody else.
You do, yeah, I understand.
Mike and I, we live that, yes.
So we're going to give them a 3rd cart with a blue top. Essentially, I mean, that's the base of it. Who's paying for the carts?
It's built into the cost of what we proposed.
Oh, the $24?
Mhm.
Okay. I didn't see that in here anywhere, so but thank you for clarifying. Maybe it is in here. So it's no cost directly to our residents.
No.
They're not gonna get a bill, go, here's your bill for your new cart.
No.
That they didn't want anyway, so, okay.
Beyond, I mean, it's in their rate, so they are paying for it.
Understand,
They're paying for it. So it is an enterprise fund, so they do pay for the service.
they do. But again, I'll go back to my original question. They get 2 bills a year for it, and that's all they have to worry about on their property tax. So, and that's enough for me.
Okay, I attended the planning commission meeting last night. And there's a part for the water district and the sanitation district to take a major part because they're looking at low cost housing. And they're looking at keeping the rates low to keep, so it's affordable for people. So I think it's going to be published. It goes to the city council next week or next month. And you need to get a copy of that before you start negotiations. And see what they're expecting of the sanitary district.
That part of the housing element.
That's part of the housing element for, that they approved it last night, the planning commission, it goes to the city for approval, so. And they're looking at sanitary district and water district for fees and things that are going to keep the cost low for the homeowners.
Just to follow up, Scott, I agree with Vice President Schaefer. I'm over here going, oh man. It's concerning. There's a lot of change coming. We're gonna talk about another change here in a minute with the wastewater. I mean, okay. So my question is, if we did go down the road of a 3 cart and we just went with a 90 and 235s, can't we just keep the billing as is and not give people an option to go less?
Oh, yes. No, I mean, it's our choice whether we go with a pay-as-you-go system or just keep it as is.
Okay.
And it's not in the present, 2408 or whatever that number is.
2408.
It's not in the CRNR's proposed
We keep it and just go to that.
rates
Okay.
presently.
But it could be if that's what we want to
Yeah.
do. Okay. All right. Thank you.
One quick, so when you negotiate, are you negotiating going to the 2408 rate? Or is that set in stone?
So that's the 2408.
That's
But
their
they-
proposal.
No, that's not set in stone. We're
That's.
that was their
come-
first. Here it is. Okay, well, let's go back and talk some more. So no,
Okay.
that's not it.
Okay, sounds good.
Actually, the 2408 is about a 5% increase in cost. And that's, I think, substantially lower than the state estimated residents and or whomever has trash services would bear. And I think the cities, when they published something in the paper, they thought it was be about a 10% increase in probably on the commercial industrial side. So a 5% increase in rate is better news. Not necessarily for the residents who are going to pay it, but it's better news than what has been bandied about for as potential increases.
And we talked about it briefly at the last meeting. There is a lot of compliance that 13 requires, doing random audits on the residential routes, flipping lids. There's a lot of tracking, a lot of reporting, a lot of outreach that is included in that cost that we
Yeah,
proposed.
no, there were.
But to Nabila's point, again, we submitted the one proposal to kind of get to this stage with you, and we can kind of go through a breakdown of, okay, here's the cost just to switch to the 3-cart system, and then here's the cost for us to do all of the education and outreach for you, if that's the desire of the district, to have CRNR do all that for the district.
One more quick question. 1383 is really rearing its head because even the local media is starting to report. I mean, you didn't hear anything on KTLA or KBC, right? Now they're all starting to throw out these things. And so there's a little bit of education that's taking place that way, fortunately. The city adopted their, Scott, resolution on compliance with 1383, correct?
They adopted their ordinance about a month ago.
Ordinance. I did that to you yesterday. Okay, so the ordinance is in effect. From a hauler standpoint, has the city of Costa Mesa come to you and said, we now, and you guys have some franchises in the city of Costa Mesa. So are you now going to be required under 1383 to give all of these multifamily folks that have no organics, they're all now going to get an organics bin, correct?
Correct. We are not doing a blanket rollout. We're meeting with each individual customer. There are some cities that have decided, I think Signal Hill was one of them. I heard from another city that they just dropped containers, whether they wanted it or not. We're taking a different approach.
No, let's don't do that.
Yeah, we're taking a completely different approach, that we're contacting customers, reaching out to them, talking about the legislation. But the city now has an enforcement mechanism. If we have customers that flat out say, I'm not doing it, I don't have the space, we're not doing it, then the city in 2024 will fine them, and they'll be required to fine them. And there's already fines set up by the state of what they have to fine those businesses per day, or multifamily customers.
Okay, so those customers that you're doing commercially or multifamily,
Yep.
that the city of Costa Mesa has, that their bins have to be in an enclosed area, whether they have individual carts or 4 yards or 12 yard, whatever those big things are. Where are those going to be put?
I'm not sure on that. Mike might know from the commercial side, since Mike helped for the city to write the new contracts that we just signed.
Yeah.
I can tell you, living in Costa Mesa, driving around, I don't know that they enforce that completely, because I do see a lot of carts with lime green lids, even in multifamily areas that are outside of an enclosure. So I'm really not sure what their plan is to do. I mean, there are some cities that years ago adopted everything has to be behind an enclosure, but enclosures that were built 20 years ago had room for only 2 containers. They don't have room for 3.
I have an alleyway behind my office,
Mhm.
and they're all 4 family
Yep.
units behind my office. And when the city passed their enclosure ordinance, they said you had to have room for 4 carts, because there's 1 cart for each of the 4. So now every one of those 4 unit places are going to have 8 carts, because they're each going to get an organics cart, right? So I had property owners coming to me and saying, why do I have to build this? This is ridiculous, because they thought we were requiring it, right? And I said, go talk to the city. It's not. So the city's now going to have to, and Mike, maybe you know this, the city's now going to require them to double their little enclosures, aren't they?
Mike, can you go up on the microphone? Thank you.
You punted off to them earlier, so I think it's time you came.
Mike Valier, consultant to the.
Talking to the mic.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. So the city, at least up until now, has been enforcing the enclosure ordinance. In fact, the big wine vendor had a roll off for cardboard. They had to put big netting up to
Really?
block it. Again, there are space constraint waivers for multifamily properties, 5 units or above. The hauler actually is one of the entities that can say, yep, we can't do split containers, we can't do this, we can't do that, it won't fit. So we're currently in that process. We actually gave the haulers a notice to send out to people to say, hey, your automatic service is starting unless you have a waiver. There's no option 3. So again, we're reviewing that. So, but again, that's City of Costa Mesa stuff. So again, for Costa Mesa Sanitary District, it's definitely a challenge to me, the whole rate situation. I do negotiations on these. Again, on its surface, 2408 is not a bad rate, but when are the new vehicles phased in and what's that schedule? What is the cart cost that's being projected and how is that breaking into the rate? You're now going to take a third approximately by state statute, 25% of the waste stream, and you're not going to be processing it anymore. So now that drops down to the landfill rate. True, the organics is going up, but the recycling, again, I take a bit of an exception because that facility was built to process mixed waste. So to say it's not equipped to do it, maybe it's not equipped to do it at 75%. But again, there's a lot of topics for discussion. Also, typically billing is $1.18 in savings to the hauler. So where is that broken into your rate proposal versus the other cities that they service? So there's a lot of things to look at. So it's hard just seeing a number. It's like, well, how did you build up to that number?
Not getting good cell phone connection.
Well, we have another go at this. It's not being approved tonight, nor voted on tonight. So we're going
Today, I get direction, Lord, do you want me to start negotiations?
I would, sorry, Mr. President, I would like to at least have the ad hoc committee, waste committee have some discussion with this, if we can fit that in, is that?
Well, if it's okay with the board, let us begin the negotiations. And then after our 1 or 2 first rounds, we could bring that back to the ad hoc committee and say, hey, are we direction or not? We get some committee, but at least let's
I'm okay
kick
with that.
it off.
Scott, is the goal to get this done so that the property taxes can be adjusted if that's the method of revenue?
It's not so much, the goal is not regarding the property tax. The goal is just to determine, are we gonna go with 3-cart system or not? And if we are gonna go with 3-cart, we need to get that implemented ASAP. And so, because it's gonna require a lot of PR, a lot of outreach. So
I like that suggestion of having them start the negotiation,
Yeah.
especially with what Mike just talked about with some of those other costs that are involved. So we can, I mean, a negotiation's a negotiation. It's not a handshake.
Right. And so let us have a couple meetings with CRNR, and we can bring it back to the ad hoc committee and give them a status, give this committee a status, and we're going the right direction. What else, or is there something we're missing? And we'll get direction to the committee, go back to CRNR, and until the committee is happy with what we negotiate, then we can bring it to the board for discussion.
Why can't we all be in it? I mean, why is just the ad hoc committee?
Because then it's a public meeting,
Oh,
and this
okay.
way they can negotiate without the public
Okay.
being,
Makes
knowing
sense.
exactly what I mean.
Okay. Good question. Good answer.
Mr. President, I have a suggestion. I think no problem authorizing Scott to negotiate with CRNR and go through the process. It's going to be a long process. I would ask for 2 caveats. The first being, part of that negotiation is utilizing the existing facility and the upgrades to that and what those costs look like and how that would be rolled out. And then the second one, and I may not get any support on this, but if we're opening up the contract, we're opening up the contract. I would want to negotiate with other providers, and they may or may not choose to give us a proposal, but if we're looking at it, gotta compare apples to apples with a few people.
Yeah. Well, it actually wouldn't be a negotiation if we expanded to other bidders, it would be a bid
Or a
process.
bid, yeah, you're correct.
And that would take a little different time, but
Mhm.
Yeah, I would be opposed to that. I think we have a contract already that's That's pretty firm. We just probably want to stay with our same vendor.
The only problem is this contract will be null and void.
That's not at all. It's just going to be negotiated. That's what Alan told us just a few minutes ago.
Okay.
Do any board members have any more questions? I for one, also, I think there's been two board members express we have a simpler system than the pay-as-you-go process. And I, for one, would also like to stay with the existing process. So that'll simplify your negotiations.
I would agree.
Do any of the other board, Jim, do you? Thank you.
Thank you, President Uten. I did have several comments on this. First of all, as I think was partially acknowledged, the statements in the September letter from CR&R that this district is the last holdout with a two-cart system is not correct. The city of Newport Beach currently has what in effect is a one-cart system, everything going into one cart with an optional cart for recyclables. And although the staff in Newport Beach has been announcing for months that that is changing to a three-cart system, the city council has actually never approved that yet. And it's coming to a new contract. They passed an ordinance which is very vague on what the rules in Newport Beach will be. And a new contract with CR&R will be coming to the city council there in January. There's probably a 99.9% chance it will be passed and Newport will be moving through three-cart system, but it has not happened yet. Second point I would want to make, are we absolutely sure here and in Newport Beach that we're understanding this SB 1383 requirement about high diversion MRFs? The idea that the trash has to go to, first of all, SB 1383 is only about organics. We're talking about 75% diversion. It's 75% diversion of organics. If you have, like this district has, a two-cart system, I think they are thinking of a two-cart system like Newport Beach sort of has, of one for mixed for trash and one for recyclables. So you need to get 75% of the organics out of that. But theoretically, if you have a green cart and 75% of your organics are already going in that, you are complying whatever you do with the trash in the mixed one. So why would that have to go to a MRF that extracts 75% of the organics out of that second cart? Logically, it makes no sense. Are we absolutely sure we're understanding that requirement correctly? And then secondly, another oddity of Newport Beach is we're one of the only two cities in California that understand trash collection to be a basic city service. Newport Beach and San Diego have for years regarded this like street sweeping as something that is paid out of your basic property tax bill. And since Proposition 13, part of the 1% tax we pay. So we pay nothing for that. But for several decades, we've been paying a small recycling fee so that CR&R would separate the recyclables for us. Now we're being forced to go to this, probably in January, three-cart system. We are doing the sorting for CR&R and yet being asked to pay a higher recycling fee. As I think the spokesman said here, it's making things easier and more profitable for CR&R because we, the citizens in Newport Beach, and now in this district will be required to separate for them. Shouldn't that be causing some reductions in the contract price, not so much increases? So I'm certainly curious about that. And then most importantly, or maybe not most importantly, finally, you very recently passed an ordinance. Obviously, if you're going to that ordinance dictated a two-cart system. If you go to a three-cart system, you will need a new SB 1383 ordinance directing people to a three-cart system. And I noticed and tried to tell the people in Newport Beach, when you enact an ordinance, Cal Recycle offers two models. One is called the standard collection system, and the other is a performance-based ordinance. And in the performance-based ordinance, you're promising that 90% of the customers will use a three-cart system. And if you adopt that model and can ensure that 90% are in the three-cart system, you're allowed to have what's called a performance-based ordinance, and it does not have to require these route inspections and lifting of lids and other regulatory requirements. It only requires that there be some characterization of the waste to show that the three-cart system is performing properly. So the question is, that would apply at the level of cities. Does it apply to this district or not? And if so, wouldn't you want a performance-based ordinance if you're forcing everybody to have three carts so that you don't have to pay for this extra inspection and so forth? Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Hmm.
So we need to provide staff direction regarding the 2021 wastewater rate study.
Give Scott the direction to do that, as soon as he gets all the information available.
Do we need to vote on it?
No, we don't vote.
I'm just asking for direction.
Okay,
I'm hearing majority.
Yes, direction.
I'm hearing the majority of the board is not opposing starting negotiations, so if there's
Yeah.
no opposition, then I'll proceed.
I'll oppose, but majority carries.
And, make sure you get that planning commission document about the housing element. I think that'd be important for you.
Thanks. One quick question.
Oh.
Part of 1383 says that we have to have a compliance officer. There's something in there about there has to be a compliance officer to make sure that people are, am I misstating that? Okay, all right. I thought it said something about you have to designate someone to open the cans and be the spy, if you will, but that's not a requirement?
It's not a title, but
But we have to,
posed. to
go ahead.
do-
This is Alan Burns. I was going to say that we do have to have an inspection program to ensure that we're meeting our requirements. Actually, the residents are following the law too. But there is a 2 and a 3 cart system mentioned in the regulations, and based on whether you adopt 2 or 3 carts, then you may be able to go to the high recovery facility or not use the high recovery facility. But that's all in the regulations. I do not know about the performance-based ordinance. We'll look at that and see if that changes anything. But everything we've done so far, certainly we will adopt a new ordinance if we go to 3 carts.
That's it.
does staff have direction?
Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, the third item then is receive and file the 2021 Code Enforcement Officers Report.
David Griffin will be giving this report.
Good morning, President Newton, members of the board. This report summarizes major points for 3 ordinance enforcement topics covering scavenging, graffiti, and trash container enforcement. For the month of November, the CMSD interim code enforcement officer focused his efforts on patrols in various parts of the community. The goal is to identify and deter instances of scavenging and residential trash cars left within public view. In the month of November, the district saw a number of complaints filed with the CMSD interim code enforcement staff regarding scavenging activity in the city. As with most scavenging complaints, the alleged violations take place in the early morning hours. In order to address the resident concerns, the interim code enforcement officer is patrolling the streets by 6:30 a.m. The month of November, I've caught 8 scavengers throughout the city, listed by the maps on the following pages. Trash container enforcement. There were a few customer complaints reported to the district headquarters regarding trash carts in public view. the following: a list of locations where trash card violations were found and addressed by the courtesy notice process. I issued 110 notices, again, throughout the city, listed there on page 10. No cases of graffiti. And on the final page does show the days that I caught the scavenging activity: 4 on Monday, 2 on Tuesdays, 1 on Wednesday, and 1 on Thursday. I did have a question because I've been noticing, as far as on the enforcement part of this whole thing, is organics carts at commercial establishments now. I'm not sure if anyone's aware of those restaurants now I've seen, and they're left in public view. I'm not sure about the fencing or having them enclosed in an enclosure. But I'm not sure of the direction that you guys want to take on those because, again, they're having issues with storing those, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we serve the residential customers and the city serves the commercial industrial customers. So I don't believe it's in our purview to do anything about that.
Okay.
Other than let the city know that there's a habitual problem. And this is going back to what we talked about earlier about they're going to say, we don't have room to put it in our, but I think if we see habitual things that a note and then something to the city might.
I just noticed, going south on Harbor yesterday that I noticed a lot of retail establishments, i.e. restaurants, having those out for disposal already now. So
Are those in view from the street?
absolutely.
David, when you give the courtesy notices, are they because carts have been left at the curb or are they up
In-
against the house or
In the street,
in the street? Yeah, okay.
in the street.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Thank you. Do any of the directors have
I do.
questions? Oh, you still have a question?
Yeah,
Go.
I still do. It's a story. In my area, the College Park area, they are not flipping those trash cans over. And now with the rain, it's even worse. And I just drove along and there's a whole bunch of them. I don't know how we can educate the trash people, trash haulers, to turn around and just flip it,
Get the lids closed?
Pardon?
You're talking about getting the lids closed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially on the green, it's so sad to see that. And then you see, this, everything else.
Well, and then another point of, on the code enforcement side, I went into a neighborhood and tagged a couple carts that were in the street. And I did lift the lid. The organics cart was full. There was some solid waste in that cart. Tagged those carts and then drove around the corner and realized there's a whole city block. And a lot of that neighborhood where organics weren't picked up. And so I guess it was mentioned to CR&R, but if they could pass that on to us at the earliest convenience so that I'm not out wasting time or tagging carts for residents who left them out because they weren't picked up, because now they call in and they're upset with us because, of course, their cart wasn't picked up and I wasn't aware. So I called CR&R yesterday. They informed me that there was an issue with the truck being broken down on Friday and that they were going to send someone out there. But if they know that, the earliest that they can, forward that to us is going to save a lot of time for me and headaches with residents for a violation tag on their carts for no reason.
They are being good as far as picking up early. Where before I used to get the phone calls of people that, say, I'm like, this is late and my trash hasn't been picked up. Now they're really onto it. But the only thing is the lid thing that, I
Understandable.
don't see why they can't understand it, just that would make a difference.
And I followed a truck yesterday and the same thing. I'm not sure if it's just the way it's equipped and the speed of that, the way it closes, but it was leaving the lid open.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, like a day today, now that cart's going to be full of water
Yeah.
and someone might not be able to tip that over to dump that
Right,
out. So
Right.
I understand that concern.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. President. Just, so I just want to understand, CR&R misses a pickup for whatever reason. In theory, we get that reported to staff and then we got to get it to you, is what you were saying before you're out on the.
Well, I think what's happening now, sir, is a lot of people are calling CR&R and going around us. And so it would be CR&R's responsibility to let us know that we had a missed pickup. I mean, they knew on Friday the truck broke down.
Right.
They need to let us know that and that we didn't get everything picked up, whether it's via phone call or an email. So when I come in on Mondays and I hit that Friday neighborhood that trash carts shouldn't be out on the street on a Monday morning, that I'm not having to call them to find out that they've had a missed pickup. I mean, I again went around the corner and lifted lids and confirmed there were still a lot of those with, still organics in the cart. And then some people just left their solid waste cart out. I mean, I think it was one of those where I'll bring them all in when it's said and done. But again, unfortunately, it was an entire neighborhood over off of Fairview and Paularino, just south of the 405 freeway right there. So it would just make it easier. And when I speak to people, because they've come out and stopped me and have said, hey, we didn't get a pickup, we've called CR&R. And I said, well, you need to let us know.
Right.
So that we're aware of that as well. I think a lot of that's what's happening now because their phone numbers are on the carts now, where in the past, it was Costa Mesa's number that was on there and they were calling us. So we were more privy to what was going on with the trash carts. But other than that, I think it's just an easy, phone call or an email to somebody to let us know.
Well, on Billy, I'd like to have you chip in on this because you've been reporting the CR&R communication is substantially improved. Was the district aware of what the code enforcement officer is talking about?
I found out this morning from Mike Carey that I guess it was a truck that had broken down late on Friday. So it was after hours. That was our Friday off, but at least a phone call message into someone to let us know on Monday. And then Nabila usually will forward me an email and other staff,
Yeah.
because if people call in, they're aware of these areas had a missed pickup. And so
Yeah, I'm just saying that the reports to us have been that the communications is substantially improved. And you're saying that there was an instance when it didn't happen.
I think, Mr. President, whereas the misconnection is that staff is not informing our own staff. code
Yeah,
enforcement officer about
that's what I'm wondering.
So that's the issue. So it's our fault for not informing David, but Mike Carey did call me or email me last Friday about
Okay.
the missed collection. I did get emails from residents. We responded to those residents, say, hey, it was a truck broke down. It's coming back on Saturday. They didn't come on Saturday, then they were picked up on Monday. So that's the disconnection right now. We just
Okay.
need to communicate better with David.
Well, okay, so we've got that answered. We'll work better with you.
thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Have a great day. Be safe.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I was just informed that our Citizens Advisory Committee Chairwoman Elodie Katz has raised her hands and would like to address the board.
Okay.
That's
Ellie,
good.
are you there?
I am. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to chime in because I was one of the residents that actually had their organics carts missing pickup on Friday. And I had gone through the Costa Mesa Sanitary District website to file a complaint. And I had also forwarded the email I received to Nabila and Scott had responded on Saturday saying that there was a missed pickup that he was aware of that Mike Carey had alerted him to, but they did not come and pick up until about noon yesterday. tying into what the previous gentleman had said about the whole neighborhood just having their organics carts out. I just wanted to ask if there's a way, well, first I was curious, apparently Mike Carey had alerted Scott that everything had been picked up, that the situation had been resolved, but it actually hadn't. So I was just curious if this was part of that same issue where the truck had broken down, or if this was a second issue. I don't know if Mike Carey's on the line.
I'll refer that to Mike Carey.
Yes, good morning, directors. To respond to Ms. Katz's question, we were notified late Friday that a truck had broken down. I didn't have the specific location of what area that was. Turns out it was on Eldon, but a portion of Ms. Katz's neighborhood, which is in the Presidential Streets, was also affected by that. I noticed her complaint come through the GoGov system, and we notified staff yesterday morning to deploy out to that area and clean up whatever had been left behind from Friday.
Okay, thank you. Well, I guess my question is, because the organics do, especially with trying to encourage food waste into the organics bins, which I've been doing, is there any sort of option? Sometimes they've come and picked them up on Saturday, but waiting till Monday. Admittedly, with the colder weather, it's much better. But in the summer, the Friday pickups are a bit challenging if we have to wait all the way till Monday. And if we don't know that if the truck isn't coming till Saturday or Monday, at least we could pull them into where it's shaded. But just kind of waiting, is there a way to increase the knowledge as to when a truck might come to pick up the missed pickup?
We do have specific routes identified. A trash route number 1 would be the first one in the morning. T2 would be later, and so on and so forth. I will work with operations to get a detailed update of when those Friday routes in particular, and I agree with you, the Friday ones are the challenging ones because then it sits until Monday if we're not notified. If we're notified before 5 p.m., we can get our customer service engaged in the conversation. If residents happen to call, then we can provide them with the update. We can notify CMSD staff in a timely manner, even if it's on a Friday that staff is off. We can notify prior to 5 p.m. and then arrange for those pickups to happen on Saturday. If we don't find out about it, or if I don't know about it until later in the evening on Friday, it's difficult to deploy those drivers to come back out on Saturday. But if we know about it earlier in the day, 3 p.m., we can arrange for a Saturday route. We typically don't have Saturday residential routes in Costa Mesa, but if there's a miss, like there was this week, we would bring in a crew to be able to come and sweep those missed areas on Saturday and not make the residents wait until Monday to benefit from those services.
I see.
Got a suggestion. Maybe you could have a standby guy ready for Saturday, just in case something like this happens. Just like we do for the sanitary district.
We have had that in the past. We'd pull somebody from an area that typically does have Saturday routes to be able to clean up on the back end of that.
Just a thought.
Okay, thank you. Then my other question was just kind of tying into what President Newton was saying about increased communication with CR&R and the performance metrics. And I think Vice Chair Lester had brought this up too. So this was a whole neighborhood that got missed. Is this basically being logged as one complaint as far as how many missed pickups for CR&R? How is a missed pickup of this size being gauged, I guess, is my question.
Well, if we know an entire neighborhood is not picked up, and we have some specifics as far as the nearest cross street, we can estimate the number of households, but there's just needs some more information on staff. Someone says the entire neighborhood is missed. Well, where does that end? We just need more information. That's why it's kind of hard for us to determine the number of home. Do we log it as one complaint or numerous homes missed? We just need more information to verify that. So sometimes we'll log as one complaint, or sometimes we can log it as many missed homes if we have the correct information.
Okay, so as a citizen reporting it, would it be helpful if I said I saw at least 30 trash cans out or something of that
Yes,
nature?
like-
Or
Like, I'll give you an example, like Vice Chair Lester, she went out and inspected, several carts and she counted. So, okay, we'll confirm that. So if we have confirmation, then we'll count it.
Okay. And then the other thing I was thinking is would it be helpful to post on Nextdoor to just try to get a tally from people who say that they had their carts missed, or do you think that might actually?
Yes, that would definitely help.
Okay. All right, I'll try to. And I mean, it happens pretty rarely. The service on the whole has been pretty good, but yeah, the organics, just because they can get a little stinky, it's a little frustrating. But okay, thank you guys. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Appreciate it.
Melody. Do any of the board members have any more questions, or can we go on to the next item? Thank you, David. The fourth item is provide staff direction regarding the 2021 wastewater rates study.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this is our third meeting to discuss the proposed wastewater rates study. Previously, the board had discussed this item on November 9th and November 16th. Before you today, we are presenting to the board 5 options to consider. Each option has their pros and cons. You will be receiving a presentation from our consultant, RDN, on the options. After concluding from the presentation and answering your questions, staff is seeking direction from the board to pick one of those 5 options and direct staff to, on December 20th, to receive and file the preliminary report regarding the 2021 wastewater rate study, and then approve setting a public hearing date to be on February 28th, 2022. Consider adopting the wastewater rates effective July 1st, 2022. So I'm going to turn it over now to Ichiko from RDN, and she's going to give you a presentation on the wastewater rate study. Ichiko,
Thank you, Scott. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. May I share the screen, please? Are you able to hear me? Okay.
Yes.
We can hear you, Ichiko. You're good.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not able to share the screen right now.
Just one more second, please. You're a co-host now, Ichiko, so you should be able to share the screen.
Okay. Let's see.
You're now the host. You can't share the screen.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. Let me just try this one more time. I think I got it. Sorry about that. Technical difficulty. Do you see it?
No, we don't.
Oh,
Oh.
We do. Now we see it.
there you go.
Good to go.
Phew, sorry about that, everybody. Well, good morning, the Board of Directors. Again, thank you for including us in the study session this morning. So since we've met last time, district staff and team RDN worked closely together to address your concerns and questions that have come up so far. And I will go over the key slides we shared last time to refresh your memory, and we'll dive into the options Scott mentioned. So that's kind of the process of today's presentation. The financial plan, we looked at this together. This hasn't changed. The district's operating and capital project costs will change over time based on the inflation factors that we developed. And this figure, simply comparing the total revenue and expense. The revenue include revenue from customers' rates, the operating revenue, such as investment earnings, inspection fees, and other revenues from miscellaneous charges. The expense side include capital improvement costs and operating and maintenance expense. We talked about the apparent revenue deficiencies last time, indicating that current rates will not generate sufficient revenue over the next 5 years, which is the study period for this rate case. Major O&M expense and capital outlay. Scott went over the list in depth during the last Citizen Advisory Committee meeting. Here is the capital side of expenses. Just showing that critical projects that should be included in this rate study. The most important equation for public agencies finance, which is to balance cost and revenue. We briefly talked about this too. The district does not make any profit from its operation. It's easy to forget, but that is how the financial planning is modeled. So we look for the amount of revenue you need to collect in order to balance the scale. That is the ultimate goal of this financial planning. So let's see, these are the RDN proposed overall revenue adjustments. With these adjustments, the district will be able to operate the system and provide safe services to its customers and reach the target reserve balance of about $10 million by the end of the study period. Please note that these adjustments do not directly translate into the rate adjustments for the first year. The subsequent years, the adjustment you see is directly applied on the rates, but the first year, it is the revenue adjustments, not the rate adjustments. I think I received an email regarding this specific matter, asking that question. I would like to share one of the figure that we create from cost of analysis, cost of service analysis. That's a part of the study process analysis that we needed to perform. So what we are suggesting is your total revenue requirements, the total revenue requirements needed to be adjusted upward by 9.6% for the first year. But are you seeing still the my screen here? Do you see the cost of a service allocation screen here or no?
Yes, teacher, we see the spreadsheet.
Okay, good. Thank you for confirming. So the total revenue requirements, whatever that is, needs to be adjusted by 9.6%. But I would like you to look at this cost allocation, revenue requirements allocation, in other words, single family residential customers under the current rates, the revenue requirements allocation is 34.3%. And under the proposed rates, we are just suggesting that their cost share, their revenue requirements should be 32.1% of the total revenue requirements. While multifamily residential customers, their current cost share is only 24%, and we are suggesting that needs to be increased to 29.1%. I just wanted to demonstrate why the first year's rates do not reflect this 9.6% across the board. Everybody gets different impact. And hopefully that answers the question that was raised this morning. Okay. Do you have any questions so far?
I would proceed, Ichiko, to complete your presentations, then we'll ask.
Got it. Okay, that sounds great. Okay, so one comment we received was consideration of 2 account growth theories that are quite different from RDN projection. Projection is based on the historical data, with known development such as Metro One project and rapid growth in ADUs. Let's see, so our projection shows in the green line here. Then we have housing element document account growth projection, which suggests that housing requirements needed to be increased. It's represented in the red line here. Then there was another suggestion that was brought up during the last meeting. There's another number that indicates the growth could be, the growth could be as much as the yellow line presented here, which suggests that growth could be to the max capacity of the city, how many dwelling units can be built within a service area. So you're looking at three different, completely different account growth theories. Again, the green line is the RDNs, and the red line is the housing element number based on the requirements. The yellow line is housing element document. It's also from housing element document, but that line indicates the maximum capacity growth. And then here, based on that EDU calculation, we are showing the population growth. The orange line is from SCAG, population estimates developed by Southern California Association of Governments. This is cited in Housing Element 2. And then the red line is the RDN projection, and the yellow line is based on the housing element unit of requirements, housing requirements. And light green line here is the housing element unit number based on the capacity growth. Green line is the historical population growth. So the SCAG number kind of follows the historical trend. RDN projection shows slight increase, but the other two numbers included in the housing element documents, you can see the significant growth. We really believe that the most financially responsible thing to do is to use our growth projection. If the growth that's suggested in the yellow line and the light green line does not happen, the district will be looking at a serious revenue deficit. So again, our proposed options were based on RDN projections, but we will talk about what it means if the growth actually do happen as well. So let's look at that. Another thing we did, actually, Mark created a different capital improvement project plan. The Plan 1 CIP is included in the current plan, our original proposed plan. And Mark created Plan 2, which is distributing the capital improvement projects to outer years. You can see the first 5 years, the level of capital improvement project executed a much less. So we are utilizing Plan 2 capital improvement project execution schedule to create a couple of optional plans. So these are the 5 options that I would like you to look at. The first plan is the one that you saw the last time, during that study session. Option A, 9.6% annual rate increases for the next 5 years. This is fiscally sound based on RDN growth projections, and all capital improvement projects will be executed as scheduled. And the good thing about this option is you will not experience substantial rate increases for the following 5 years, not the first 5 years, but the subsequent 5 years. So this plan will create very strong rates that will support your system's operation, not for the first 5 years, but the 10-year period. Another thing about this option is you could lower these increases. You could adjust these increases. You cannot go any higher because these numbers will be capped, but you could lower if the growth happens. So, the actual, the growth indicated in the last figure, let's say the area developed to the point that housing requirements suggest, then you can potentially lower this revenue adjustments from 9.6% to whatever the adjustment that you identify for that specific year. Option 2, 9.6% for the first 2 years. This create fairly sizable deficit if the growth doesn't happen. It says $4.2 million deficit under RDN projection. And even though the growth does happen, you will still be looking at $2.6 million deficit. So this plan also, you will realize, okay, we are not collecting enough revenue, and you will be forced to do another rate study in a couple of years. That process will cost as much as $50,000, and you have to go through another Proposition 218 process. Option C, if we try to recover everything, if we try to eliminate the deficit from the first 2 years of revenue adjustments, that will give you 17% of the adjustment. And this is a fiscally sound option based on even RDN growth projection. All CIPs will be executed, and you will be needing to increase the rates at 4% for the subsequent 5 years, but much milder increases of 4%. So this option is not bad, but the only thing is you cannot lower the increases if the growth happens after the third year, because you are, collecting all the revenue adjustments you needed from that first 2 years of the 5-year study period. So that's the option C. Option D, 8.1% times 5 years. 8.1% annual revenue adjustments for 5 years. The reason we could lower this from 9.6% to 8.1% is the capital improvement project that you saw in the slide here. As you saw in this figure, the first 5 years, we're reducing the capital improvement projects and pushing them back to the later years. So that will allow the district to adjust the rates by 8.1% instead of 9.6%. If you do this, you will be still fiscally sound based on RDN growth projection. And you will get mild rate increases after this study period. It's about 3%. So even when we look at the 10-year period, it is very sustainable option. Now, option E is different rate adjustments for each year of the study period. Start out at 9.5%. That's the revenue adjustment for the first year. And the subsequent years, you are looking at 8.5%, 8%, 7.5%, and the final year of 6%. This is also fiscally sound based on the RDN growth projection. And this will be using the reduced CIP plan, as you saw in the previous figure. You're looking at mild rate increase after this study period of 3%. The good thing about this plan is it will most likely, you will be generating about $400,000 more in the cash balance by the end of fiscal year 2027. So these are the 5 options. I would like you to take a look at the actual rates that are produced based on those options. This is option A. You have looked at this already. The first year, $94.82 for single family residential customers, and that rates will be increased to $136.82. Again, the reason you don't see the increase from 92 of 9.6%, 94.82 is not 9.6% more than $92.38. This is because the first year, the revenue adjustments are not directly reflecting each customer's rates because of the cost of service analysis that we updated. But instead, like multifamily residential customers' rates have gone up, significantly more than 9.6%. So, it's difficult to process why it's not simply, adjusted by 9.6%. This is because we updated the cost of service analysis and updated the cost allocation to each customer class. So every customer class will be impacted differently. Okay. The option B, 9.6% for the first 2 years. And that's it. You are not going to do anything else for the following 3 years. Again, create $4.2 million deficit based on the RDN growth projection. And even though the faster growth happens, you will be still looking at $2.6 million deficit. This will, the district to, this will force you to perform another rate study, because you will notice the deficiency in the revenue generating from the rates, and that could take up to 1 year, and it requires another Proposition 218 hearing, and also it will incur $50,000 additional expense in staff time. Option C, the first 2 years, you increase the rates by 17%, but you do not have any rate adjustments for the following 3 years. You start out at a higher rate, but you ended up at the lower rate because all the revenue recovery needed to happen for the next 5 years. That happens in the first 2 years. So $101 to $118 in 2024. And after that, the rates are kept steady for the following 3 years. Okay, and option D is 8.1%. This is only sustainable if you incorporate the different Plan B capital improvement project schedule and push some of the capital improvement projects to later years. And then it is a good plan because it will reduce the revenue adjustments for the first year and the rate adjustments for the subsequent years by 1.3% compared to the original plan. Option E is interesting. It recovers pretty much exactly the same revenue from the rates. You have to use the Plan 2 capital improvement project schedule, but this will give you the opportunity to adjust rate adjustments for outer years, and also this generate $400,000 extra cash. It's because how the revenue recovery was distributed over the 5-year period. This is the last rate option slide here. I wanted to share this with you because when you look at percentages, it's kind of hard to tell what the actual impact is. But when you see it in the dollar amount, it's clear. Everybody is starting, all the options start at $92. That's the current rates. And it takes different paths, but it ended up with the range of $104 to $137. Again, this option B, we cannot recommend it because you will be, you will encounter serious revenue deficit. But looking at the green line, $118 to $137, it's about $19 difference in the 5th year. That's a little bit over $1 on a monthly basis. So it's important to look at actual, dollars instead of the percentages here. Here is the rate comparison figure. The red bar is the current and the green bar is the proposed monthly charge for the Costa Mesa in relative to all other agencies. We looked at another thing, one more thing here. We looked at how much revenue rate adjustments other agencies were making for the last 5 years. You can see the Costa Mesa rate adjustments of 4% here, and Newport Beach, they've adjusted their rates by 145% during 2017 to 2022 period. So, our your rate adjustment 4%, this is significantly less compared to all other agencies. So that's all the slides that I prepared for you.
Do the board members have any questions or input? Brett?
Yeah. And I apologize. I know you hit on it, but I'm still, I'm slow. So I'm trying to understand the, say, option E, for example, in 22, 23, talking about 9.5% increase, but then the actual rate increases in each category is, significantly different than 9.5. So can you just re-explain to me how that's working, the 9.5 versus actually what each category percent increase is?
Yes, of course. So first year, and then, this is the most common question that we get. And we sometimes confuse ourselves too, because the actual rate increase is so different than, what this number suggests. But the first year, you can pretty much look at this 9.5% as a revenue adjustment that you need, not the rate adjustment.
I see. Okay.
Right. Because one of the big reasons we do this study is to perform a cost of service analysis, which, is to comply with the Proposition 218, right? And when we do the cost of service analysis, we reallocate, there will be shifts in the cost allocation. So, commercial customers under the current rates, they are only allocated 20% of the total revenue requirements, but under the proposed rates, their cost allocation will increase from 20% to 25%. So the rates will end up more than the 9.5%. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a little bit more clear. All right.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I had the same question, and I think that was the reason for the the attempted explanation.
Yes.
Do any of the board?
Yeah, this is Mike. You're basing everything on the SCAG SCAG recommended housing element or no?
Not at all. If we based the current growth based on the SCAG, you're not taking any growth into account. Like, you have a Metro One development and you're projecting rapid growth in ADUs, accessory dwelling units. Those are, I don't believe those are in the SCAG projection. RDN projection,
Yeah,
there's
um,
no development.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So the
No
SCAG,
worries.
the SCAG proposal is actually under some pretty heavy scrutiny and opposition right now. You're using the yellow line, right? The housing element.
No, we are using the red line.
Okay, I
RDN
got that
projection,
backwards.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got that backwards.
No.
But for the first two, and until the housing element is completely settled throughout the jurisdictions, we're taking a shot in the dark in some of this, aren't we?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So I believe the most financially fiscally responsible thing to do is to create our rates based on the RDN projection, which is the historical growth plus known growth, such as Metro One, 8 accessory dwelling units. We are projecting a fairly rapid growth in that projection. So those numbers are included in our growth projection.
Is it fair to say that if we adopted a 2-year rate, we would be more flexible in accommodating whatever the housing element changes might be, as opposed to going to a 5-year rate?
I don't
understand,
believe
I
so.
understand the cost of the new Prop 218, and I recognize that. But if we were to look at it, with the fact that after 2 years, the housing element should be more stable or more pronounced, is that something we should consider?
And I think we are considering this. I can't emphasize enough that these adjustments are maxed adjustments you can make. So we are presenting capped adjustments. So for example, option A, we are saying 9.6% for the next 5 years. Any given year, you can actually adjust this percentage. You can decide to adjust the rates, at 7% instead, or 6%, or even 3%, as long as that adjustment percentage is lower than 9.6%. You do not have to go through another Proposition 218 process.
Right, as long as we lower, we don't need a Prop 218.
Exactly.
I have a thought. I came in with the idea of a 2-year option, like option B, but I think if we went to that option C with the 2-year rate at 17 and 17, that would fit my needs as a board member and a citizen. That way, because then we can, after 2 years, we can adjust and do it again. But that's where I'm coming from. I think option B with a 17% makes more sense. That's what you're getting at, right, Mike?
Talking about option C.
Yeah, I mean, the percentage is 17, 70, but it's option B, only 2 years, not the 5 years, where there's nothing the last 3 years. I
think my biggest thought is that until the housing element is completely up in the air. I mean, cities have filed suit against SCAG and against HCD, and we don't know what's going to happen. And if we get locked into something for a 5-year period, we might really get caught short, because I think the ADU situation is going to explode. I think that's going to be the most substantial thing we're going to see. Plus, I think the area that we're going to see the biggest impact in Costa Mesa going forward is the multifamily residential. I mean, we're seeing that right now, that the multifamily residential is exploding. That's where developers are, sorry, developer. I mean, that's where they're making their money, you know? So I'm just a little concerned that if we lock for 5 years, we might be cutting it. We've already seen that last chart that she showed with us being it looks good that we're the lowest, but we really cut ourselves short, honestly.
Yeah, if you're, my suggestion, if the board really wants to go on a 2-year rate schedule, then my recommendation is option C.
Yeah.
But just for 2 years,
2
not
years.
5 years.
Right, 2 years, because your rates are going to be stabilized for the last 3 years, and then each go again, and correct me if I'm wrong, let's say in 24 or 25, we can lower that below,
right?
We can lower that, right?
That's
You can potentially lower it, yeah. I believe if you want to lower the rates, you do not need a Proposition 218 process. That's when you need to, bring it up. But yeah, I think this option is good. I actually like it as a financial analyst because we're trying to eliminate all the deficit, during the first 2 years. So you will see the immediate, outcome of your rate adjustments, right? Because all other options are, somewhat like a phase in. You're trying to eliminate the deficit at the 5th year by the, final year of the study period, which is, fiscal year 2026 to 2027. So it's a strong option, but two concerns that I had. The rate impact is definitely going to be greater on the customers, initially. The second option is you will probably need to adjust your rates at around 4 or 5% for the subsequent years. That's just with known projects, right? Known capital improvement projects. If the current condition continues and you won't see any unexpected additional capital improvement projects, then, you are looking at about 4% of rate adjustments after this first 5 years.
Well, let me ask the question. If the housing explodes, our revenue goes up significantly
Yes.
in almost every category. We've identified the multifamily residential as the place that it's likely to zoom up, and those rates actually bring in more revenue. Based on the cost of service analysis that you've done. So I'm not sure, I'm not sure we need to be concerned about our housing projections. If housing develops more rapidly than the RDN analysis, we get more revenue.
Right.
President Newton, that is correct. In fact, I was going to chime in, Vice President Schaefer, when you base the rates on low growth, you're actually being very fiscally conservative. But if we were to base it on the highest projection and that doesn't come in, then you will be short funds to operate our agency. So it was slightly different than, I guess, how you worded it. I'm sure that's what you meant, but I just wanted to make sure.
No, I guess through this whole discussion we've had, I'm still, and Scott, you've explained this, and I'm okay with it, but when you look at any of the charts, we're still putting the burden on single family much more than we are anybody else. And I understand that that's probably when you look at the flows and everything, I don't know. I'm queasy about that. That's all. And I completely understand. Yeah, the more growth you get, that's what we want. But I want to be able to make sure that that we have the money to fix the stuff that's already there. I mean, all of that is playing in my mind,
That's
so.
where, again, option C allows you that flexibility. We can do that. If you go to option C, if you're really dead set on a 2-year rate structure, we can fund our CIP projects.
Yeah.
The other options, D and E, Mark was able to reduce our CIP. We originally came to the board with a $12 million CIP budget for the next 5 years. If you go to the option D or E, then we'd have to cut about $2 million out of that. Not a big, that's a whole lot, but still doing about $2 million a year, which is not bad. It was typically what we do.
Are you talking about option C with 1717?
Yeah, option C, we can do the $12 million.
For
CIP.
2 years. That's what I think would be smart.
There's two options. Option A and option C both cover everything that you need for this agency for the next 5-year period. Options D and E are reduced capital, and I will say we're not eliminating it. We're just, I'll say, kicking the can down the road, which we do need to come back and address at least 5 years from now. If we can address it sooner, I guess we could. I like option C. However, as you mentioned, there are some drawbacks to that. But I will say E is a good one as well, because that $400,000 extra set of funds that you might get could be put towards the capital, and that would reduce how much of the can you kick down the road. That is a nice option, but I do like option C.
Nobody likes option B, right?
I don't know, you guys don't.
No, not after looking at all the data.
Yeah.
But I
Can I
think,
just chime in? You will-
Arlene,
Yeah.
do you still have your question in your mind?
Yes, I do.
Oh.
No, I just wanted to say that I completely agree with option C. Because first of all, after 2 years, we have the ability to look at it. The capability is important. And we need to look at what is happening after 2 years to give us strength to whatever else we're going to do. And I don't think that we should go past that. I just think that we would be smart.
are you saying option C, just for 2-year rating?
Yes.
Not 5 years, just 2
Yes,
years?
yes.
Dr. Eccles?
It's
Couple questions, then a comment. But my first question, in the report, can you just explain to me what it means by, what is it, the 3%? Where did I find? Oh, yeah, mild rate increase 3% following 26, 27? What's that mean?
Yes, let me go back to, well, actually, I'm not including that following 5 years. So what I'm talking about is fiscal year 2028 to 2032. So when we do financial planning, we don't look at just for the first 5 years. We try to capture for the next 10 years. Although, we are limited to adjust rates for the 5-year period because that's, what Proposition 218 requires. But as far as the financial planning, we looked at the 10-year period. And when I say mild increase of 3%, we are looking at the outside of the study period, starting fiscal year 2028 to 2032. Does that make?
The goal of any of these rates is to be, I'll say, neutral funded at the end of a 5-year period. And the reason why we're projecting those 2, 3, 4% increases after that is because on several of these options, when you kick the capital improvement can down the road, you've got to pay for that somehow and make up for that deferral of that capital. So therefore, you will see an increase, even though we are projecting to be capital neutral at the end of a 5-year period.
Okay. And then, I guess a question for Scott, and maybe anyone on the board. I mean, I agree. I came in again from the last time and today. The 2-year just in my head just seems better. But if we went with a 5-year even, I mean, how many times has this agency passed a rate increase of whatever and then lowered it? I mean,
Twice.
We did it in the,
Twice?
we did it in the solid waste fund.
Solid waste.
I
Yeah.
think back in 2012, 2013, we lowered it twice.
gotcha. Okay. But any time on the wastewater
No,
that
we
you can
never-
recall? Okay. And then, I mean, I'm just, again, simple person, simple math. But at the end of the day, option E, actually, I kind of like option E for a variety of reasons, but basically bottom line, we're talking 37% on the single family. If we go with option C, it's basically the same thing. It's a net 34 versus 37. Okay. So all we're doing is we're having a rate increase the same. We're just now bringing it instead of 5 years down to 2. So that part doesn't jive with me either. So I'm like, I'm stuck. It's like, we're going to hit you with a 34% increase in 2 years, or we're going to hit you with 37 and 5. It's like, all right.
Actually, C
Yeah.
is at 28%.
He's at 28.
C is at 20. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I see. I still can't get my head around. It's a pretty big jump, but we'll see. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's percentages versus actual dollars.
Right.
17% sounds atrocious. Huh. But the dollar amount is not too much. The single family goes up $9 in the first year, another $9 the next year. I just hate to think in terms of 17%.
Right. That's why we do not like.
Not in my
present
mind,
percentage.
but the reality, yes.
Can I make one more comment regarding the planning commission meeting last night? So Sandy Guinness came on, because she's a city planner in Newport, I believe. And she says, if you went to that green line that she showed, it would be like 47,000 more residents. But then you'd have to have 200 acres of parkland, which we don't have. So we're never going to reach that green line. So that's why after 2 years, we can see where the city's at. And they're not going to have they're going to give a yearly plan all the way to 2008 and then work real hard on what's happening between 2008 and 2009 when it's required by the state. So I think the 2-year plan is a smart way to go right now with the 17% increase. Just for your records.
So I need direction from the board. Do you want me to bring back on December 20th, option C? On December 20th? And then you would set the rate for the public hearing for February, what did I say, the 28th, with option C to be considered. We put option C on the public notice for the public to.
With that 70% increase.
17%, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That would be my choice, but I'm game to hear anybody else's concerns.
Can we bring back C and E?
I'd rather have it, if the board can make a decision today, it's helpful for us. So then we can bring back a preliminary report with the option C on there. So I would.
I'd
I'd
like
to have a
to
commitment
hear
from
what
the board.
everybody else thinks, because that's just my opinion. I'm waiting to.
Yeah, well, my strong preference would be option E, but a bit, because if the housing is out of control, or the city does figure out a way to do the housing increases at SCAG or whoever recommended it, we just get more revenue.
I'm hearing C and E. If it's okay with the board, if someone can make a motion, and then we can hear which one wants to approve C or E, and then that gives us direction which way to go on December 20th.
Can we take a vote this morning?
Yes, yes, you can. It's the board meeting.
Study session. Though.
It's still a board meeting. You can still vote.
We're still
Well,
here.
is the motion you're asking for to
I'm
come
asking for-
back
I'm
to
asking
the
for the-
board meeting to make the approval? Are you just
For-
voting on?
Which direction to go?
I'm asking the board for direction. Which option do you want to bring back for December 20th to make put in the preliminary report that you'll file and receive, and then we will set a
Okay.
public hearing date for February 28th, whichever option you pick.
Okay.
Could we, I'm not sure what Arlene thinks or Mike thinks, but I mean,
Based on my uncertainty with all those factors, that the housing element and what you just said about park space. I would prefer option C.
I'll make a substitute
Well-
motion for option E.
That wasn't a
No, I'll
motion.
second
That wasn't a
that. I'll
motion.
second what you're doing.
I did not make a motion.
Oh, I thought you.
I'm still not clear we could take a vote at a study.
Yeah, it's a board meeting. You're still at a regular
Okay,
board meeting.
okay.
It's just, we call it a session, but it's
Did
a board
you or
regular
did you
meeting.
not make a motion?
I did not make a motion. I said I preferred, Art asked me my opinion, and to me, option C is the one that we ought to pursue.
I'll make the motion for C.
Can we get, sorry, can we just get public comment if there is any?
There is.
No second.
A minute.
Thank you again, President Uten and members of the board. I can't say I followed everything that was discussed here today. And I have a little vagueness about the connection between the population projections and its effect on the rate increase. Because while it would generate more ratepayers, I assume that the extra volume those ratepayers are generating create extra operating costs as well. So there is both cost and revenue associated with the growth. So I'm not quite sure how that's being factored into this. And I have lost track of how the very much lower, what the rate proposed to be charged for ADUs is being based on. Apparently an assumption that they will generate substantially less waste than a normal multifamily unit. In the comparison with other cities, the last slide showed you Newport Beach had a vast increase, 149% or something. From what I know of Newport Beach, and perhaps some of the other cities with very large increases, that was because of a hesitancy, I believe, on the part of their city council to go ahead with the Proposition 218 hearing. So they had deferred rate increases for many years, if not a decade or more. And that could be, I don't think you're too concerned about the comparison to other cities, but some of those increases could be for that reason and a little bit misleading. In addition, the consultant and you have referred repeatedly to the housing element. There is, of course, a housing element in Newport Beach. And I don't know if she is looking at both of those housing elements. In looking at your service map, the areas of Newport Beach that you serve with the wastewater are primarily, I believe, zoned as R1 residential, and the housing element in Newport Beach is anticipating most of its new growth would be in commercial properties that they're hoping to convert to multifamily residential. So those areas that this district is serving in the Newport Beach housing element would probably be affected primarily by the new ADUs that might be developed there. And their projection was originally going to be quite large. We reduced that to a pretty modest level. So there would be some of that growth occurring in those areas. And then in addition, there's the thing called SB 9 that allows the single family lots to be subdivided and doubled in population or quadrupled. They're anticipating that will not have a huge effect in Newport Beach, but who knows? And then when you're looking at option C of the ones that you're looking at, and as the consultant explained, the 17% and the 17% are they're the needs for revenue increase. And so for single families, it's fairly modest increase over 2 years. But your multifamily ratepayers will be facing nearly a doubling of their rate in 2 years. So I think you have to be aware if that's what you're asking them to do. Because the consultants primary thrust of what they're trying to do is to what they think is properly shift the burden from the single family homes to the multifamily, which they think have not been paying their fair share in the past. So the 17% is actually a nearly doubling of the rate for the multifamily units. Thank you.
Now can I finish? Okay, so in my thinking of option C, I would like to make that motion for the simple reason that we are into an unknown situation right now. And I think we have time then to readjust ourselves after 2 years. And I think this is very palatable. So I'd like to make the motion for item number C as an option
With the 17%.
with the 17%. Absolutely.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion by board members?
Someone's not happy.
I think the sound projector is voting against this.
That was yours. Someone's not happy. That was your mic.
No, after this, the 2 year, then we still can look at it again. That's what's so good.
Well, we're doing a favor to the single family and
Can I make one more comment before we vote? In option E, I just want to make clear that after the first 2 years of those increases, we could at that point say, we're going to hold steady and not increase any rates. Is that correct?
No, not option
No.
E, no.
Option E, you're locked into those?
Well, yes, 5%. Yeah.
no, I think,
I thought we could lower.
no, we can always lower it, yes.
You are correct, Director Eccles. You can lower the rate. However, if you do that based on our conservative projections, you will likely be in a deficit fee perspective or a rate perspective. Our coffers won't have enough money if you go with lower rates. Now, again, you're correct. If in 2 years we realize there's explosive growth, you're right, you could lower the rates. Based on what I've seen, I'm not sure we're going to see those explosive growth.
I'll just follow up then. Again, I'm conflicted. I like the 2 year, but I think the 17-17's pretty aggressive to hit everyone with, but that's why I kind of like option E, but again, I don't like the 5 years. So it's a tough deal, but I'm not sure I can vote yay to go 17-17 straight off the bat, but that's my opinion.
Should we have a roll call vote? Would Madam Clerk, would you do the roll call vote?
Director Eccles,
No.
Director Perry,
Yes.
Secretary Schaefer,
Yes.
Vice President Schaefer,
Aye.
President Uten.
No.
Okay,
Motion carries.
motion does.
Thank you all.
We'll bring back on December 20th, option C. There'll also be a preliminary report from a written report from RDN. We'll present to you the receive and file on December 20th. And then you'll set the public hearing date for February 28th. So that way next week, we can start getting notices ready and getting them out 45 days in advance.
Thank you. I have to leave the meeting now, Scott and board. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, Alan.
Okay, going on to item, closing items, oral communications and directors' comments. Do any of the directors?
Just a comment, Mr. Mosers, in Costa Mesa, they're looking at the Fairview Environmental Center, which they don't have an agreement with the state yet, but they're looking at that location, Fairview. They're also looking at that. They're adding one Metro West to the plan because it wasn't in the plan originally, but they're going to add that. Okay, sorry.
Excuse me, Director Perry. Ichigo, did you get direction from the board directors? They selected option C. Okay, so we finished that item. We're moving on. So thank you for your presentation. We'll talk later. Thank you.
In addition, they're looking at motels, converting those to low-cost housing. So
I do not.
so that's
know
why
the
they
address.
get that report from the city for the housing element will really help you.
I have been over it.
Art, are you talking about the development of Fairview Park?
Well, that's one of the things that the city's looking at, but they haven't, they don't have an agreement with the state. The state hasn't come forward.
Okay,
That's a significant area.
yeah.
And they own part of the golf course also on hole 4 and hole 5. That's, the boundaries are wrong and they could take part of the golf course, which I'm not proving of, but.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Okay, any other oral communications or director's comments? If not, this meeting is adjourned. And what time is the SPAC? 11:30.
11:30? Okay, good.
Thank you all. It was a huge opportunity and I appreciate all of your input.
Well, most of them look good in that picture. There's one that,
There's
one
only
that I have a
one.
little,